Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your Fulham podcast from Down Under. We're here tonight to discuss the Leeds review. Fulham beating Leeds 2-0 in the FA Cup, moving through to the quarterfinals for the first time in 13 years. A great result with two absolute screamers from João Palhinha and Manor Solomon. We only score bangers. And here to discuss those bangers with me, I have Elton. How are we going?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Jack, and hello to everyone out there.
And Sammy, how are you going, Sammy?
Yeah, it's a good day, isn't it? It's a good day with good goals. Let's get cracking.
It is a good day. And look, we previewed this one earlier this week, and it was always going to be tough to understand what kind of team Leeds were going to put out and what kind of team Fulham were going to put out. Dad, I'll throw to you straight away. What were your thoughts on Fulham's starting lineup?
Well, not too far off what I think we discussed, if I remember correctly. There have been that many conversations over the last few days. I'm probably a bit confused, to be honest. But yeah, I think pretty much as expected.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry.
I didn't think so.
Sammy, go on. Tell me what you thought.
No Kazawa. Ream starting.
Kazawa injured.
Oh, is he? Okay, well that's a bit more reasonable. But Mitrovic starting. I was quite surprised by that. As well as Solomon getting his full 90. That's great. And also Cedric Sars. Again, I actually thought that because I was going to start, but I didn't know he was injured. So that makes a bit more sense. But yeah, Ream starting and Mitrovic starting. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, point of order, I'm getting like senilities crept in here, actually, because you're absolutely right, Sam. We reviewed and picked a team, and then there's such a lot of stuff coming out on Twitter. I felt like I've been discussing these changes all along, and you're absolutely right. Actually, we picked a team which said Vinicius up front. We did say Ream to start. I picked Ream to start. We didn't for a moment think Tete would play, but we definitely did think Kazawa would play. Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, Robinson started as well. Yeah, I wasn't expecting Robinson. I wasn't expecting to see Robinson.
Yeah, he's got a ruptured knee. He's got a ruptured
interior ligament, I think it was. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there was obviously a bit of late news that came through after we recorded the podcast about Mitro being fit, and it did seem as soon as Silva said that he was going to actually try and get some minutes into Mitro's legs. Obviously, with the game against Brentford coming on a Monday night, we do have a little bit more time. I saw someone comparing it to playing on a Sunday and then playing on the next Saturday. Is the effective gap that we've got between this FA Cup game and our next league game. So you do basically have that full rest period. So giving Mitro some minutes after being out of the game for a bit, I think actually was quite important. And so it does make sense as to why he made that change. And then, with the Kazawa late injury as well that we didn't know about when we were recording, it does make sense as to why Robinson started. I think we assumed that Leno was going to be rested. We assumed Suarez was going to get a run out. We assumed Lukic was going to get a run out as well, and sort of guessed that Wilson and Solomon would be starting too. Sammy, what were your thoughts on the Leeds lineup? They put out a pretty strong lineup, and me and Dad, when we spoke about the potential Leeds lineup, we were sort of expecting a few more starters to be rested, but they put out quite a strong team.
Yeah, I mean, they had Weston McCann. They had what's his name, Summer something. Somerville, yeah, he was really, really strong. I mean, they came out like with like a lot of bite, and I feel that I kind of assumed that they were going to throw this game a little bit away just purely because of their position in the table, but no, they came out for like an actual scrap. It just turns out that we were just better, and that was good to see. Although, like in all fairness for them, for the first like 20 minutes. They did break our line. Rodak had a couple of faux pas, and I was like, this could go either way. But yeah, we'll get on to all the good stuff, won't we?
Well, let's talk about the Leeds chances, because they did have a couple of chances early in the game. There was the offside goal firstly, which people talk about offside goals as a chance. I don't actually think they are chances, because you're offside. Yes, you put the ball in the back of the net, but you did it because you're standing offside. So, when people, I know
Agree.
Brighton fans were up in arms after they scored 2 offside goals, but at the end of the day, you're offside. So how can you complain too much about it? But obviously, that was their first chance. They got the ball in the net quite early on. And then there was the push. I call it a push. The very slight nudge on Harry Wilson that sent him somehow flying across the 6-yard box before the ball was tapped into the back of the net. Dad, your thoughts on that disallowed goal for Leeds? In your opinion, should it have stood?
So I was just thinking about my preparation for this evening. I've had a long day. I'm sure we all had a long day. I've actually watched this game in 4 pieces. So I could not get a stream because Paramount Plus was playing the game. I got up too late. By the time I actually tried to watch it, there was no replay. And then I had to deliver my car to your sister, but that's another story. And so I'm sitting outside of an Indian restaurant on the chairs they happened to leave overnight, watching the second half, and then Jack calls me for a review, so I couldn't watch the end of that. And I've watched this game in bits and pieces. I've probably forgotten more than I remembered. And that particular, so I'm sitting on my phone watching the game, and that particular disallowed goal, I think I watched about 5 times because I couldn't actually see the problem. And admittedly, the camera angles were really difficult. And
yeah, I thought that as well, actually.
And then the only way you can really see it is the reverse angle, where you see Wilson flying, but he looks like he's jumped off a trampoline. And but I think the guy has clearly given him a massive shove, but the camera doesn't pick it up, and all you see is Wilson flying, and I don't see the guy laying a finger on him at all. But he's obviously moved, and the ref was in a really good spot. So, and the ref blew it up incredibly early, right?
Yeah.
So
a point you made there, though, was that he got a big shove. I don't think he got a big shove. I think he's copped a bit of a dive there.
But he's right in front of the ref.
I know, but what I'm saying is, if that happened to us, I think we'd be very, very angry about it. I don't think there was enough of a push there. I think it's very similar to what we see over here in Australia in AFL, where you're not allowed to put your hands on someone's back, but players now, in the knowledge of that, basically dive because, if someone's got their hand up and you feign being pushed in the back while you're jumping, it does look like you've been pushed in the back really hard. The ref did blow it instantly, and he blew for the foul before the Leeds player had actually put the ball in the back of the net, which
before Rodak had parried the ball.
Yes, yeah, it got called instantly. So he obviously saw something there. I just don't think there was much in it. Sam, did you think that was a foul?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think we even talked about this with Russ when we were on Cottage Talk. Shout out Cottage Talk. It's just part of the modern game, isn't it? If you get an inch, you take a mile. And I think you do kind of have to play like that nowadays. And it's just, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I do think it's just part of like the modern game. And if you're getting a push in the back in any way, I think you are obligated to dive in some way. And that can be controversial, but I think that's just the way the game is.
I think the frustrating thing that I'm feeling about this is that I don't think we're in a position to even judge it because there was no video footage of any contact between the player and Wilson, and all you see on the video is Wilson flying.
Well, and that to me though says if you with there are 35 cameras in the ground. If none of those cameras are picking up a shove on Wilson, then he probably didn't get shoved.
But the problem is, Jack. The problem is he actually, by the time Wilson is flying through the air, the ball is well and truly on its way. Right. And so if the guy pushes him really early, that's exactly as you'd expect it to unfold. But there's no evidence.
I still don't think I've watched it back and watched multiple angles. I don't.
Yeah, hang on. There's only 3 angles. There's only 3 angles given.
I know. I've seen them all. I don't think
Exactly.
he got a big
And
enough
VAR's
shove to warrant.
28 cameras.
I don't think he got a big enough shove to warrant the fall that he. I don't want to say simulated, but it looks like a bit of a dive, and I think Leeds should feel a little bit aggrieved there because I think we've got away with one. I think he definitely didn't get a big enough shove to cause that reaction because you watch it in slow motion from the normal broadcast camera, you can see that he jumps up in the air and then sort of throws his body forward. I just don't see a big enough shove.
Yeah. What I'm saying is it's very confusing because the ref is in a perfect position and he sees it very early. So unless the ref is mad and he doesn't understand the rules, I know what I saw, and I can't see how we get a penalty out of that. I can't see how that goal is disallowed because all I see is Wilson flying through the air. But the video that we were shown provides no supportive evidence.
Yeah. Anyway, let's keep moving and talk about.
I like the logjam.
Yeah. Let's get away from the whodunit. Can't be bothered.
Let's talk about the opening goal of the game. And Polina's just superb finish from 30 yards. And I've sort of measured it because he actually hits it right on the edge of one of the cut strips.
This
and
also
cut strips is the distance between the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box. Weird that I spent time
Jack.
doing that this morning, but it's exactly 30
God,
yards.
I hope your employers aren't listening, Jack, because I'd be asking questions about your timesheet.
Pretty simple maths. 12 plus 18, 30. There we go. That's how long it took me this morning.
Don't you have a child? Don't you too?
It's classic Polina, though. He wins the ball back from a slightly stray pass. It wasn't even a terrible pass, but he's there closing the ball down straight away. The Leeds player seems to try to let the ball run across his body to feint past Polina, and that's just never going to happen. Polina makes the tackle, wins the ball, and literally first time somehow spots the Leeds keeper slightly out of position. But the fact that he curls it from that distance, and I mentioned it in a couple of tweets as well. Usually you see players who are having a shot from there try and put their laces through it. He curls the ball from there and places it perfectly, caressing the post and ending up in the back of the net. Sammy, I know how much you love Zhao. How nuts did you go when you watched that goal?
I'm just out of words. I'm like out of things to say about him. Like he's just fucking great. I'm sorry, but like he's just so good. Like I really don't know what more I can say. Like he clearly loves being at Fulham. He's like smacking the badge. He's celebrating with the fans. He's just the best. He's so good. Like it's such a beautiful goal. It's like it's so picture perfect. Like no 6'4" center down should be able to do that. And like he's just full package. I don't know what else. I've said everything, and he just keeps on giving me the goods. Like he's just great. He's so good. Is he the best centered down we've ever had? Like genuinely.
I mean, probably. We've had very different players in that position. I don't think we've had anyone who has the tackling ability. I mean, we've had good players there. Bouba Diop comes to mind. Dembele used to win the ball back really well, and he was top class. But yeah, I mean, he's something else. Dad, were you when you saw that live? Were you expecting Polina to shoot?
No, I mean, you're right in what you're saying. It's a very typical Polina challenge, and he just does that all the time. He loves those challenges, and many of them get him into quite a lot of trouble. But it was very, very opportunistic. He just sort of stole the ball. I didn't see it coming. did not see it coming, and then very, very quickly, he's gone for a shot. I never saw that coming. He would not normally do that. He'd be laying the ball wide and, trying to build something up. But that's a lot's said about people. People try to very deeply analyze the package that is João Palhinha, and one thing that is probably said about him is that he's long. I was going to say his long balls, but that's slightly disrespectful. But he's long passing, and therefore his efficiency over distance is probably the weakest part of his game. But that was not just a long ball; that was expertly and very deliberately curled. It was hugely ambitious and really quite wonderful. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to love about the man, and that's, he only scores bangers. And I saw a compilation video of Palhinha's goals, not just for Fulham, but Palhinha's goals back when he was playing in Portugal as well. And geez, he really does love a long distance strike, and he can strike the ball well. For someone who's known, as a defensive player, he's got a great stroke on him. Little comment here from Dave Lovell following along live on Twitter saying, Sam, sorry, what's a centre down? Genuinely have no idea.
Centre down midfield? CDM?
Central defensive midfield.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
That's
my
big
bad.
dollars for you there, Sammy.
I can only apologise. I come here as a fan, not an expert. I will never claim to be an expert.
So look, I mean that goal definitely felt like it broke the back of Leeds. They were looking pretty good, I thought, in the opening 20 minutes. But when you concede a goal like that, you could see heads dropping. Leeds did have a couple of other chances, but Dad, do you think that was a bit of a turning point in the game when you concede a goal like that?
Well, it's a moment where you break the spirit of your opposition, because I wouldn't call it against the run of play, but they did actually look quite tricky. Noto, is that the correct pronunciation of the left wing or whatever he plays?
I think so, yeah.
He's handy. Is it Jorginho? He was tricky as well. Disallowed goal, nice little tap in, but he looked like he could have caused us a lot of problems. So in as much as we were defending very, very well, I didn't think we were having it all our own way at all. Certainly not up front.
Yeah.
And then, so it's a competitive game. It's an exciting cup tie. The Leeds fans are going mad and singing us completely out of the cottage, which is another topic. And then your defensive midfielder, not known for his goal-scoring abilities, pulls that one out, steals the ball, and curls one round. That is a high quality goal. And I think that breaks your spirit. For the next 10 minutes, the heads are down.
Yeah, I think so. And look, after that, Noto did force a very good save from Rodak. He saved down low to his left. It actually looked a very similar chance to the one Solomon put away against Brighton. Similar sort of running down that left wing, shooting across the keeper. I think Rodak got down really well for that and made a really good save there, pushed the ball away to safety, which he didn't do really well for the rest of the game. But again, we'll touch on that a bit later. And then there was a point as well where Leeds hit the post. Again, Rodak looks a little bit flappy there. I think he possibly could have done better, and he looked a little bit all at sea a couple of times during the first half. Dad, let's just touch on Rodak quickly now. Obviously, we sing the praises every single week of Leno. We know how good a player he is. And that sort of detracts from Rodak because he's being compared to this amazing keeper. But did he do enough to sort of prove himself as a worthy backup?
The problem Rodak's got is it's like going out on the pool with a really good-looking girl if you're not that good-looking. It's always going to be difficult, isn't it? But I think he's got a confidence problem, just generally. Not recently. I think generally, he doesn't like leaving his line. He doesn't look like a confident man. He looks like a nice bloke, rather than a really confident man who commands his box, screams at his defenders. Gets I don't know, really commits to what he's about to do, and comes off his line and takes on the strike. He's not that guy. He's a timid man. Is that too harsh?
I'd say a little bit. I guess the thing to remember is he's only 26.
It doesn't matter how old he is. You see 19-year-olds who are ridiculous. I don't think that.
No, but they don't have the command, which is what you're looking for. It's the confidence, and that comes with experience and playing a lot of games at a high level.
I'm gonna disagree with you, really, because I think you've either got that in you, and often when young people are confident, it looks arrogant. It looks what's the word? It kind of looks. No. It looks. I can't think of the right word, actually.
I know what you mean. I just think.
But it's in them, and all they do is they curate it over time, and they kind of balance it off a bit better. But it's in them because they have that sense of belief, And I don't see it in Rodak, and I think that's why he's not. I have to
disagree a little bit there, because I think a lot of that's down to confidence, and you see it across the pitch, not just in keepers. When players aren't confident, you see it in Harry Wilson at the moment. He's lacking confidence, and he doesn't look the same player that we know he is. And I think if Rodak had the opportunity to play a few more games, we might see some more of that, because we've seen it from him before. He's a good keeper.
I'm going to let you disagree, but I'm going to let you disagree with me, but I don't think you're right.
No, and okay. Come to fight me.
Moving on anyway. Sammy, do you think now that Fulham are through to the quarterfinals, Leno comes straight back in?
Oh, that's actually a good question. Yeah, I thought you were going to let me talk a little bit more about Rodak, and because I was going to go off in a similar direction to that, but yeah, just go more into the confidence thing. But you actually do raise a really good question, because I don't know about you guys, but I do kind of feel like the FA Cup, you kind of have like an FA Cup team and you have a Premier League team, and I feel that you stick as close to that FA Cup team as you can until you kind of get like semis and finals. But even like say with like Newcastle and Man U in the Carabao recently, I feel like I don't think they did play their full starting like Premier League lineups, both teams. I feel that they trickled in a couple more starting players. If it were me, honestly, I probably wouldn't consider Leno until semis and finals, and then even then I might even edge it to Rodak, just purely because he is established in that FA Cup role. And I think team cohesion in those competitions is actually quite a big thing, because I don't want to call it like Fulham B squad, but they are kind of playing as a separate team to the Premier League side. So I feel it's good to essentially keep that order for that competition.
I think it's actually been very different teams Fulham have put out in every round so far, and it's definitely a lot of rotation. I think it probably does depend on who we get drawn against as well. I think if we got drawn against a Man City or a Man United, for example, I think we might go, if we actually want to be serious about a cup run, you put in Leno. If you end up playing Grimsby somehow, you probably let Rodak have another crack. But I think it just depends on how serious you want to take the cup at that point. Let's have a quick look at the Polini goal, though. I know we've sort of moved on from it, but we'll take a quick look now.
Cards in the FA Cup so far. And the shot finds the back of the net. Superb goal! Talinia!
It is that man.
It's literally just one touch and then excellence, isn't it? It's like
he's just top class.
Crazy confidence.
So moving into the second half, I think both teams started fairly well. Fulham probably looked slightly on top, but the turning point came with just another moment of magic, and this time it was the man who we've seen now score 4 goals straight in Manor Solomon. Let's have a quick look at his goal here for those following along on the live stream.
Com o rebote, Mitrovic, tabela com o Solomon, pode bater pro gol, bateu mais golaço do Solomon! Gol!
I would like to put my hand up.
Apologies for the, I think, Spanish commentary, but go on, Sammy.
Obviously, brilliant goal. Manor Solomon is top class, all that good stuff. Mitrovic this game, I thought, was excellent. I thought he was so good, and I thought he provided so much throughout the entire game for the time that he was on. And I feel that, because a lot can be said for Vinicius. I like Vinicius. I like just him as a guy and kind of like what he's bringing. But oh my goodness, like if that is like a 70% Mitrovic, it just adds so much, doesn't it? I thought he was really excellent last night.
Yeah, well, let's touch on it now. I mean, it obviously we've talked about it for weeks while Mitro's been in and out of the side through injury, and how big a difference he makes to the team, and how, you know, nothing against Vinicius, nothing against Bobby when he played in that position, but they're just not Mitro. And it was really obvious having Mitro back in the team what he adds. And it's not his goal scoring, because obviously we saw him put the ball in the back of the net, even though it was clearly offside and fairly disallowed. But the amount of times he looked to set other players up, and obviously this Polina goal comes from a really good 1-2 where Mitro just reads the game better. I mean, Vinicius at that point is peeling away, trying to get to the back post and looking for a potential cross. Mitro comes towards Solomon and goes, you know what, I'm a really good option here. I can get a beautiful little 1-2, and I know where Solomon would want the ball. He gets the ball played into feet. Solomon makes the run instantly. Mitro with the perfectly weighted little layoff, and Solomon sets himself up for yet another superb goal. Dad, was it... I mean, it's a silly question, really. Was it clear that Mitro is needed in this team? Yes. But was it just nice to see Mitro back on the field after watching Vinicius for the last couple of weeks sort of struggling away a little bit and not being able to nail down that spot as his own?
I feel somewhat sorry for Vinicius with all of the analysis and criticism.
Too right.
Fair and unfair. And I don't think there's been that much unfair, because I think he's actually quite well liked, and not a single person thinks he doesn't try hard. And he's a young guy. So I think everyone's being fairly fair towards him. And I think last night, what Sam's saying really is that it was just a very conclusive proof and celebration of everything that is Alexander Mitrovic. He is a very, very, very capable team player, and he's very important to an efficient and a top-performing Fulham team. And I think it just underscores and highlights just how much we have missed Mitro, and how much we do miss Mitro when he doesn't play. His vision is excellent, but it's not only his vision. He's always looking for it. He's actually very unselfish. He's always looking. He's always looking to play, bring people in. His vision is incredible. His skill in actually releasing wingers is incredible, and he delights in the 1-2. He loves it. You know, people talk about the kind of instinctive greediness of strikers and how they like seeing that, and of course that's an important element of a striker. You don't want a guy running towards goal and then suddenly laying it off to someone else. You just want him to run like an animal towards the goal and put it in the back of the net. But Mitro loves that little 1-2 stuff. He's good at it, and he loves it. And I think
we saw last night a lot more of that as well. I think he was really looking to play in his teammates, probably more so than I've seen him do usually. Usually he's with his back to goal. He does lay it off, fairly often, but he'll try and find space to get a shot off. Last
Did
night,
you see his delight? Did you see his delight when Solomon scored? He looked so
but
happy.
last night it was really obvious that he was trying to play in his teammates way more, and it was like he wanted everyone else around him to score and didn't care that much if he scored or not.
Yeah,
maybe he was nursing that little hammy a bit.
Well, even if he
Possibly,
was,
but-
though, like it's a word that we just don't associate with him as much. Like just selfless. Like it was a very selfless performance, but like because he is an elite level striker, and all elite level strikers should be able to essentially aid a team in the way that he did. And it was he's. I mean, we know he's top drawer, but like
I think what I love about this all though is that it is actually screaming for all the people who knocked Mitrovic, and Fulham fans who've watched him over the last couple of years are not in those numbers, but for all the pundits and the sort of other team fans that knock Mitrovic's all-round game, he is very, very high quality in what he brings to a team, and the scoring of somewhere between 12 and 40 goals in a season is a massive bonus on top of what he actually does.
Must be such a relief for him as well to just not have to be the central goal scorer. Like that must really be like a weight off of him. Anyway, Jack, you say things.
Well, let's move on and have a quick look at these stats. Fulham, a fairly even game there, though Fulham slightly dominating possession. Leeds far more shots on goal, a few more on target as well, but Fulham obviously more clinical. Many less fouls than we've seen in previous games. And I think both teams are probably, trying to avoid getting too many injuries or yellow cards going forward as well. What I'll do, though, I just want to pull up one thing, which is a quick clip. I'm not sure what language this is in, but it's a quick clip just showing Solomon's goal against Leeds and his goal against Wolves, and just how similar these two goals actually are. Let's have a quick look.
He's not Mitrovic in the air. Here's Solomon. He'll have a go. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
It's just brilliantly put
probably
together.
Probably doesn't do it justice, Jack. Yeah.
I know. It's for our people following live, and we'll retweet that clip as well. I found it on Twitter. But the place he hits the ball from is almost exactly the same spot in those two goals, and he curls it in almost the exact same way, and the keeper in the exact same way can't get anywhere near it. It's just superb. And look, I think that was the point that the game was killed off. There were a few little testy moments towards the end where Tim Ream was superb in defence and sort of saved us a couple of times, and Rodak, I have to say, looked a little bit flappy, and we'll sort of talk about that when we go through some of the top tweets afterwards. But yeah, look, it was a good victory for Fulham. I think it was clinical. We were able to give really important minutes to important players, such as Mitro coming back from an injury. Lukic got a full 90. Suarez played 88 minutes or something along those lines, and Tosin played a full 90. I think a really important fixture for us, and good that we sort of came through it unscathed as well. No real injury worries. Kind of a good performance overall. Sammy, happy that we moved through to the next round?
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel. Like, I'll be honest, like, because I'm just so I'm not used to this. It kind of just reminds me of when somebody who was like fat in high school becomes like attractive in their mid-20s. Like, I just don't know how to experience this or how to really fully enjoy it, because like I'm just so used to essentially not being in this space, so it just all feels kind of surreal. Like, obviously, I'm excited and like I want, but I struggle to believe what's actually happening. I don't know. Like, I'm the one who's like, yeah, let's all get carried away. But like, when I'm actually here, I don't know how to deal with it.
No, I think that's fair, and it'll be a lot clearer for us as well. This podcast is going to be coming out on the Wednesday, and the draw is obviously Wednesday night in the UK. So on Thursday morning, it'll be a lot clearer as to who we're playing next. The FA Cup quarterfinals are happening the same weekend we were due to play Liverpool, so that game has now been moved. So we've got Brentford, then Arsenal, and then the FA Cup quarterfinals after that. So it'll be really interesting to see who we get, and again, we'll discuss that a little bit when we get through to some of these top tweets as well. So let's jump through to these. Dad, I'll get you to walk through some of these for us if you can.
Sure. Our first one is from the beast of a retweeter, that is White Noise. Again, a shout out to White Noise for all the hard work and the time he puts in keeping Fulham fans informed. He's incredible. And he says, not counting chickens or anything, but savouring the thought of Fulham being one game from Wembley. I know traditionalists don't like the semi-finals being at Wembley, but Fulham playing there in the FA Cup under any circumstances would just be amazing. What a season this is. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, totally. Next one.
Have we lost Jack? Yeah.
Yeah. He privately said that he needed to go pee, but like that's full. Okay,
I didn't have the little sidebar up there, so well, good save, Sam.
That's okay. That's okay. We're just gonna go by charisma now. Anyway, next slide.
Okay, thanks, Sam. This is from MJG, a 1966 MJG, and he says, Rodak, you're doing me zero favors here. I've tried sticking up for you for so long, but Christ, hold on to something.
That's mean. That is mean.
It's a little tough, but
I'm happy to be mean, but that is a bit mean.
Yeah. Look, I think. Look, I thought it's funny because Jack called me after I didn't watch the game live. I watched the first half, and I told you guys I'd watched it, and then I went and had a haircut.
And then you
lied.
lied.
Sitting around. No. Then I was sitting around trying to watch the second half on my phone outside an Indian. That's a true story.
Yeah.
And
then being an Australian fan.
Yeah, and it was about 36 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Jack, gee, Rodak's not having a bad game, actually, because I thought his first half was all right. And Jack said, oh, just wait till the last 15 or 20 minutes. And it was a little bit, because I didn't watch it live and I didn't watch the whole thing in one hit. I didn't really get a very good picture of it. But anyway, the next one.
It was a very Rodak performance, and you know what? I don't want to hate on him too hard, but like
no, I'm not hating on him. I think he's doing a good job in the FA Cup, and just because I didn't get a chance to mention that, I'm telling you, this is a game of chess. We will use our pieces as we can. We want to win the silverware, and the moment we get a draw, that we think we absolutely need to pull out the guns, he's not getting a shirt.
One thing,
walk him out the back.
One thing I'll quickly add there. I think what MJG is tweeting there is basically. I think we're all in the same boat where I try and stick up for Rodak as much as possible. I really want him to be successful, especially as our backup keeper, because he's not going to challenge for the first keeper spot. But I think he's a really handy backup keeper. And I think what MJG is saying there is, we try and stick up for him constantly, and you just want to. It's hard when you see a performance like that where there's those flappy moments, and we just don't see that from our German machine in goal at the moment.
Do you know what he kind of reminds me of? You know when? Oh no, yeah, you go, Dad.
No, go, sir. Go, Sam.
Oh, so like I'm sure Dad's probably like experienced this more when like I play sport or something like that. But you know when like you go to watch like your child play or like somebody that you really like play sport and you like want the best for them, and then you just clearly see like them get subbed off for a much better player, and you're just like, I know I'm here to support you, but taking you off was clearly the right decision. And that's kind of always how I feel with Rodak.
Can we also say, because I think there is something to talk about with Monsieur Rodak. We talk about how difficult it is to be an understudy, and particularly to be an understudy of someone like Mitro, and how important it is, and how we've been sweating on these really good backups, defensive midfield or centre down midfield, as it will now be forever called, Beautiful. And at right back. And in a number of different places around the ground. If you think about between the sticks, that's a really difficult job to do to actually be the backup goalkeeper, because your goalkeeper never gets injured. Let's be honest. They never get injured. They never get tired. They rarely get injuries.
Yeah.
And so you're never going to get games, right? Unless there's a major catastrophe, and you've obviously got to have a second keeper because you just need one. But it's a really tough role to fill unless you're prepared to go and play for Man City, earn a fortune every week, and never play, if that's where you're at in your career. And so, I mean, we need to have Rodak playing well. We need him to be happy. We need him to be getting some game time to at least make him match fit. And so I think we all agree on why we want him to be successful, but he's just not Leno.
I think the other tweet there as well from FFC Yevra, Reams made more saves than Rodak this game. It sounds a bit harsh, but Ream
true.
He made some good saves, man.
I saw the stats. Ream made 3 goal line clearances in the game. So it's actually kind of true.
His reading of the game is just getting better and better and better.
Yeah, it's a little tongue in cheek, that one, but it's
pretty funny.
It's kind of true that Ream actually did almost make more saves than Rodak in the game in terms of goal line clearances, which is just
definitely more composed.
Amazing.
He was definitely more composed.
Yeah, 100%. I'll move to the next slide, and just FYI, I still had my headphones in, so I'm glad the word private chat gets fully acknowledged by you, Sammy.
Dad panics, so I just had to roll with it.
I just didn't know what happened. I just thought, hang on a second.
Yeah, I mean,
now there are 2.
I've since learned that we can also edit this in post production. So
yeah, but no, you say we. I have to edit it in post production. Anyway, on to the next slide.
Moving on. This is from Colin Bennett, and he says Wilson needs a spark. He desperately needs a goal and a few good games to get some confidence going. If he keeps playing like this, his career at Fulham, come the summer, could be in jeopardy. Yeah, look, I'm going to say that I don't know how I feel about Harry Wilson. I feel sorry for him, actually, for his predicament. He's trying really hard. It's not like for lack of will, but he's under so much pressure with such a lot of good players vying for the same position, players who are actually just better quality than him, without any disrespect at all. And it's really tough for him, And I didn't think he was completely awful, but he's just not. He's just not Manor Solomon, and he's not Willian.
Also, as well, like I feel that, so the other day at indoor, right? This is a good comparison. The other day at indoor, I was playing a more outfield position than I would usually play, and in my brain, I've also gotten a lot slower as I've gotten older as well. And in my brain, all I was thinking was, I know what I should be able to do, and I know I've done it before, but today I cannot. And I'm just getting worse trying to do it, and I feel that is just fully where Harry Wilson's at, and I feel so sorry for him, and because I've seen the best, and I just feel sad.
I mean, I think it's a really tough one, and I was having a chat with Ash during the game, actually, because you guys were asleep. Fair enough, it was 4 a.m. But we were sort of talking to each other and saying, Wilson does seem like he's just not quite the player that he was, and we know the quality he's got, but and at the same time, guys like Wilson and Rodak, these are guys who we have sort of fallen in love with over the last few years because they got us up to the Premier League in that amazing season. They've been with the club for a while now, and they're really well-loved players. But there's going to come a point, and it's probably going to be this summer, where we're going to probably see some of those well-loved squad players potentially moving on, because you do need to keep improving. If we finish 6th or 7th this year, then the benchmark for next year is to finish 6th or 7th. It would be a massive step backwards if you finish 6th or 7th and then you don't try and improve your squad to maintain that kind of position in the league. And realistically, we're going to see people moving on who we are, become accustomed to. And I think Wilson is probably in that boat where if he doesn't have some really good games coming up, because he's behind people like Solomon, Willian, BDR, you think about Cabano still injured as well. He's got a real struggle to get himself into the team. And if you're sitting on the outer, you're kind of in danger of being let go in the summer, because he would absolutely chop up a championship side. He would be a really, really great signing for one of those teams in the championship who need a winger who can score 10 goals a season. He'd be perfect for that. And I think, best for both parties at that point. If he hasn't found that spark and that confidence, it's probably a good move for him in the summer if it does come about. I love Harry Wilson, but he's just not looking like the player he was when he was, scoring goals for fun in the championship for us.
Yeah, it's such a shame. In an ideal world, I really hope that we would send him out on loan and he'd have a really successful loan, kind of do like a Conor Gallagher, and then come back a completely reformed player, just ready to come back. But I think you are right. I think it is kind of like staring down the barrel of the gun of like, we want to improve. We want to reach that upper echelon. And yeah, if it doesn't get better, I think Silva, the smartest thing to do would probably just be to respectfully and lovingly cut ties. Oh, I hate that though.
Yeah, I think you're right about the loan, but the problem that I foresee, and it's an issue that I think Fulham have and they don't handle very well at the moment, is we keep players for too long and their contract then expires. Knockaert cost us 15 million, Cavallero cost us 18 million, and we've effectively let those guys go out on loan and then leave for free. Same with Seri as well. He's just left for free because his contract's run out because we were sort of loaning him around. And, you kind of have to cash in on players like Harry Wilson.
No, you're right. Totally.
They're still an asset because he won't be an asset in, 2 years' time. Moving on to the next one here, Dad, from Fulham Fan News. Fulham transfer on Twitter.
Yeah. Pundit thinks brilliant João Palhinha could leave Fulham in £50 million deal. Personally, I think, not me, this is Fulham Fan News. Personally, I think £50 million won't be enough. What's his name? Caicedo?
Caicedo.
Yeah. If Caicedo is 80 million, then João is £100 million.
Easily. I would literally accept nothing less.
But I think the situation is going to be, we don't want him to leave because we want him in our side. Surely everyone, including the most business-minded person at Fulham, that could be someone with a surname of Khan, they're not going to ignore silly money, but perhaps the best way of playing business here is to ignore any offer and say it's not for sale, not for sale, not for sale. And then you might get Chelsea or Man City just, in a fit of whatever, pulling out the checkbook and giving you 100 million, which of course would have to be taken.
Well, it's quite an interesting one. And I was having a bit of a Twitter conversation with MJG just before we started recording, actually, about not this article exactly, but about Palhinha in general. And his tweet was basically saying, I wouldn't even entertain a phone call from any club unless we're talking 9 figures, so 100 million plus.
Yeah.
I actually think that I don't think that would be enough, realistically. 100 million does a lot for you, but you have to make these kind of perfect investments again. And, we've seen the Khans have been in charge for 7 years, and they've picked like 3 superb players, admittedly all fairly recently, but to pick out someone like Palhinha for 20 million again is going to be tough. If we consider he's got a 5-year deal with us still, we're about to finish potentially in a European spot. Why wouldn't you hold on to him for another year? You assume he's happy in London. He seems happy, and I think even if clubs were in for him, I feel like he'd still be happy to stay at Fulham for 1 more year.
Yeah,
he helps with another European push and helps attract players like Solomon to definitely sign on the dotted line, and maybe a few other players want to play alongside him and Solomon and Mitro. And he can actually be a core that you can build around. And then look, if a year after, so in 2 years' time, if he decides that he does want to leave, he's still got 4 years on his contract, 3 or 4 years on his contract. He's still a £100 million player. I don't think that valuation is changing anytime soon. So I don't think there's any rush for Fulham to sell Palhinha in this summer. I know clubs will be in for him and offering a lot of money for him, but I really think we need to push back hard and keep someone like him, because he's we've seen it this season. You build success around a player like Palhinha.
Yeah, I can't think of a genuine instance where it would be a viable option for us to get rid of him in any capacity. Like 3 years down the line, maybe, because his worth could go up significantly more, and maybe he would probably have bigger ambitions to play like serious Champions League football. I can understand that, but right now, or like really within like the next 18 months, I can't see a worthy fee, I guess.
But as we've all agreed, you get £120 million completely outdo your wildest thinking, and then you spend £50 million, which is a lot of money, on replacement, and he's a flop. It could happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think
you think you're really clever, and it's a flop.
The other thing to consider is we've got him on a long deal. He's 27 at the moment. Maybe if we manage to keep him for 2 years and he's 29, he's not as wanted by some of the big clubs because he's not quite as young and worth 100 million. And we managed to keep him for a bit longer. But,
if you think about it, Jack, right? If you think about it from a business perspective, if keeping Palhinha and building a team around Palhinha gets you Champions League within 2 or 3 years, that's worth more than the most ridiculous transfer fee on him.
It's not even that. It's keeping us in the Premier League for 2 years. We need stability in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We haven't had that, and we're going to have it this year.
I was shooting a bit higher, but never mind.
But no, what I mean, the amount of times that teams survive and then go down the season after because they haven't done enough to strengthen, and their best players get taken from them as well. See it happen all the time. And I feel like if Fulham was smart, I understand they got this great asset on their hands, and economically it seems like a good decision. But I think if Fulham actually want a long-term future in the Premier League, you have to keep João for at least 1 more year. At least.
Yeah, I agree.
think if we don't, we'll find ourselves in a bit of strife. Moving on to another one. This is in a reply to Fulham Flutter, who made a really good point about the FA Cup draw and sort of what it could mean for us going forward. I'll just pull up his original tweet, basically saying, assuming the cup games go as expected tomorrow, and then he listed out the teams saying, who we could potentially play and who we'd want to avoid. And I've put together a bit of a dream scenario here. There's not much point in actually running through each team, but it's basically saying, the Premier League teams like City and United get drawn against each other. Spurs and Brighton get drawn against each other. Fulham draw, Southampton in the next round, assuming all the favourites win. And then Man United play Brighton and Fulham play, let's say, Blackburn or Burnley. You could have basically a run where you play, the team that's bottom of the Premier League and then a team in the Championship to get to the final. I guess your thoughts on how it's actually looking that we can progress in the FA Cup this year.
Oh, look, there are clearly going to be some very easy fixtures for somebody on the way through, no doubt about it. What chance it's going to be us, I don't know, but reasonable odds at this point. So you could get very, very lucky. And, I don't care who we play in the final at Wembley. I'll take them on because I think we're good enough. We are a Premier League top 6 team. You heard it from me. And, so when you get to Wembley and you're really up for it, and it means perhaps more than it means to someone else on the day, anything can happen. So you just got to get yourself there. And we could have a couple of modestly easy fixtures getting there with the roll of the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to find a tweet while you were talking there, because I think I saw in the 13 years since we've reached the quarterfinals, we've been knocked out by Man City 3 times. think we've been knocked out by Spurs twice and Brighton twice as well in that time. So the teams that are left in the FA Cup currently are almost our bogey teams as is. So you really do. I know it doesn't mean anything because, we've been in very different situations across that time, but you really do hope and cross your fingers that come tomorrow morning, we're looking at the FA Cup draw and just licking our lips and seeing a couple of big dogs get knocked off against each other and giving us a nice, smooth path to the potential FA Cup final. And then a quick one to touch on at the end. We're obviously previewing Brentford, but Dad, walk us through this one.
This is from the Mail Online Sport, and it relates to our mates down the road. The Brentford striker is set to start a lengthy ban before the end of the season, and it refers to a Daily Mail article where the headline says Brentford's Ivan Toney admits multiple breaches of FA betting rules. And obviously this is significant for us. About time, and it's fairly, I don't know, I feel quite strongly about it, actually. I think it's very cynical, the way they've played it, and sort of innocent till proven guilty, but obviously pretty guilty. Massively guilty, but who, me? And, obviously Brentford as a team and a club have decided, no, we need him. He's very important. He scores lots of goals, and I think we're probably safe now. So, we'll put our hand up and say that he was probably a very naughty boy.
Yeah, it would be interesting because he's the one who's actually now admitted. The charges got brought to him a while ago. I can't remember if he got given a deadline or not, but he has admitted to. He got charged with 262 charges. Apparently, he's admitted to the majority of those, and he's going to dispute some of them. Like you said, the thought process that's been, put out there on Twitter is that now that Brentford, probably have enough points to be safe in the league this season, they probably need to pick up one or two more wins from their 15 remaining games. There's a possibility that they've looked at this and gone, he's going to have a long ban. We don't know quite how long, but it could be anywhere from 6 to 18 months, realistically, based on bans that we've seen in the past. Now that we're safe, do we actually come forward and say, let's start the ban as soon as possible, knowing that he'll miss a big period over the summer break where effectively, I can't remember when the last fixture of the season is. It's in May sometime, but you've got the whole of May, June, July, August, 4 months just chewed up by a summer break where it doesn't actually affect them.
Do we know the effective starting date of his ban? Is it now commenced?
I don't think it's now commenced. But one big thing was that Brentford basically backed him and kept starting him, saying it was still under investigation and they wouldn't make a comment, and they'd sort of not brushing it under the rug, but effectively saying while it's under investigation, we're not going to do anything. Now that he's admitted to it, I think they've got a much bigger issue on their hands where they have to probably take action at some point because he's admitted to doing something that's completely against the rules. Beforehand, it was an accusation. But now that he's admitted, I think, but I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, clearly entirely orchestrated. He's not going to be left to manage the timing of that admission himself. This is orchestrated. You think?
Yeah, but he can't automatically start his ban. Like the FA will decide when his ban actually starts. It's now if Brentford decide to play him or not.
So do you think he'll line up next Monday?
I genuinely don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he played though. And I saw a tweet come out from one of the fantasy Premier League accounts saying that Ivan Toney has been the most transferred in player into fantasy teams this week. So people are selecting him, expecting him to play this week. And a lot of people are saying they're expecting him to, score goals against Fulham because it might be his last game for a very long time.
Mm. Yeah.
I hope he has a wonderful reception.
I'm sure he'll get some sort of reception from the Fulham fans.
Sure.
So a really good selection of tweets there from what was quite an interesting FA Cup game, and a few bits of news as well that sort of fell out the back over the last couple of days. And we will go into a little bit more detail. Hopefully, by the time we do preview Brentford later in the week, there'll be a little bit more information out there about what's exactly happening with Ivan Toney. I'm trying to follow it and see if I can get some, but there's not a huge amount of information out there yet. So we'll keep an eye on that and try and report on it as much as possible. But now it's time for Sammy's split second snap. Sam's weird quiz. Let's go, Sammy.
It's not really a quiz. It's just more of just a general kind of how you're going. But anyway.
Sam's weird thing, let's call it.
Yeah, Sam's weird thing. I like that. Yeah. So this one, it's one of the more kind of genuine queries as opposed to like the fun ones I've been doing. But I just kind of want to get like your thoughts on this one. So imagine each team has a spin the wheel. And in this scenario, you would get to essentially earn one of their players just based off of spinning the wheel, and it lands on a random player. So I'm not expecting you guys to like know like the full starting lineup of each team, but just based on how each team is going. Because again, there's lots of players in the Premier League right now who are brilliant players, but they're not necessarily reflecting that in their teams at the moment. And we're doing very, very well at essentially bringing out the talent. So with that in mind, a spin the wheel, it would be completely random. So you wouldn't be able to choose, but it wouldn't include the youth team. Is this all? Have we kind of got a grasp of what I'm doing here?
No,
no one ever knows till it goes further. Carry on,
cool.
sir.
Yeah, great. Cool. Okay, so it's a spin the wheel, and then you would essentially receive a random player from either team. So would you rather a random player from Leeds or Manchester United at this current time?
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not. But like again, like it's not the full. Okay, fine. Yeah, I mean, all right, whatever.
Well, if it's anyone from in their squad, I'd take even their worst player as a backup. Take Harry Maguire as a backup centre back, 100%.
Fair enough.
I'd roll the dice on anyone in the Man United squad, probably in the car park.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, City or Chelsea?
Better.
City.
Probably
Really?
City. Yeah.
Oh, I might go Chelsea. I might go Chelsea on that one.
Chelsea have a few good players, but I think you could get loaded with Loftus-Cheek.
I also think what you get from Chelsea are individual stars that would have such a long road back to being
serviceable,
great team members.
Yeah. Leicester or Nottingham Forest?
That's not bad.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You always trash the game at the start, and then you always enjoy.
Well, to be fair, it was trash at the start, but it's got better.
It was trash at the start.
I would probably go with Leicester.
I agree.
I think they've got some really good players. It's a tough one though because Forest have a lot of very good individual players, but they just don't look like they're performing at all this season. So I'm not sure if I'd back them in or not.
Well, I think maybe what you mean is Forest have spent a lot of money.
Well, yeah, that's exactly, and bought a lot of players.
A lot of those players aren't bad players, though. Like, there's definitely some half decent players. They're just not necessarily working in that system because it's a cluster bad word. I think Leicester as well, though. I
think Leicester a great unit. So I feel like you'd inherit a player who's probably easier to integrate, even if he isn't a superstar.
I think that's true.
Cross my fingers for Tielemans or Vardy.
Man, I take Harvey Barnes, Suter. Yeah. Oh, Suter's looked great recently, but that's a whole other conversation. Wolves or Brighton?
Brighton.
I mean, like, I think Wolves actually have some really good individual players, but I just think Brighton are a significantly better team. But yeah,
their squad depth is very good. They've got some really classy young players in their squad. I don't think there'd be anyone I'd be unhappy picking up off Brighton, really.
And my final one, Liverpool or Newcastle?
I would
I'd go Liverpool.
with. I was going to go Liverpool too. I really like Newcastle. I like what they're doing, but I think the Liverpool players, this team is more proven, and I think some of the young players, you have the potential to potentially pick up Elliott or Carvalho again. You look at the Liverpool first team, and I'd take any one of those players, and they'd be starting. I would have thought in the Fulham team. There's not many positions. I think I'd take Liverpool. Newcastle good, but Liverpool just edge it.
Fair enough. That's the round. You had fun. You always have fun.
Yeah, it was a good comeback. Good comeback.
Eventually have
good
fun.
Comeback.
I don't know if you start with a really terrible one on purpose each time to make it seem like this is going to be an absolute failure, but then it seems to come around.
I just like the collective groan every time. If I get the bigger the groan, the bigger my joy.
Well, you'll be joyful for a very long time because there's always going to be groans with that one, I think. But look, guys, a really good pod again. I think it was a really good game to actually review. Great to see Fulham progressing in the FA Cup. Just a really exciting time to be a supporter of Fulham at the moment, especially when you see the two guys that we've got on our little cover photo here in Polina and Solomon, who are just, some of the most exciting players we've seen at Fulham in a very long time. And it's great to be able to watch them running out on the pitch. And I'm really excited for the next couple of games. We've got tough ones ahead with Brentford coming, Arsenal obviously flying on top of the league, and then an FA Cup quarter-final as well in a couple of weeks' time. Just wanted to do a big shout-out to, firstly, all the people who we featured tweets from. We'll definitely shout you out when we release this one on Twitter. And a big shout-out to all our new followers as well. We've had a couple of really good jumps in our following over the last few weeks where we've gone up to almost 350 followers on Twitter, which doesn't seem like a huge amount, but the fact is we were at about 60 followers 2 weeks ago. So we've had a really, really huge growth online, and we're really appreciated for it and really enjoy interacting with Fulham fans and getting around everyone online. Please do make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll be putting out new links in our tweets and in all of our posts, which give you a link directly to the podcast on your preferred podcast player. We also live stream this podcast on Facebook, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So please do get involved. If you see us come live, jump in, join in. We really appreciate it. And look, if you enjoy our content, please do share it with the Fulham community as well. We really do this because we love doing it, and keep trying to push forward and deliver good content to all the Fulham fans around the whole world. So, Sammy, thank you for coming back and joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Especially as it's such a late night for you. It's clicked over midnight there. Much appreciated, Sammy.
I just don't sleep anymore, but that's fine.
Yeah, well, that's the life of a Fulham fan in Australia, isn't it? And Dad, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And again, echoing, huge thanks for people who continue to follow us and apparently enjoy what we're doing. So it's very satisfying and very enjoyable.
Yep, thanks to everyone. And we'll be back later in the week to preview the Brentford game. But until then, come on, you Whites. Can someone click end broadcast for me?
I will.